Hello everybody, welcome back to another Photoshop CS6 tutorial, and in this tutorial I want to teach you about the Gaussian blur, or as other people like to call it in a different way, the Gaussian blur. But I'm going to say Gaussian because that's the way I was taught in school. It might not be the right way, but that's the way I've always said it, and it's hard to break now. So let's get going into what that blur actually is. So to me, the Gaussian blur is my favorite blur. It's softer than the box blur, so it's and it blurs like everything using like a mathematical formula that's kind of hard to explain. Actually, really hard to explain. If you really want to know the mathematical formula, go ahead and just type in the Gaussian blur formula under in Google or something like that and see what pops up. So it can be used to smooth details in an image, blur something like way out. It can be used to add like a soft focus to an image, and among other kind of things. I'm not going to list every single thing that the Gaussian blur can do, but you'll find lots of different uses for it. So first, let's just see what it does on its own. So I'm going to select my layer, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So pretty much it's just your basic looking blur. There you go. And that's pretty much what it does. Adjusting the radius obviously to the right makes it a stronger blur, and to the left more is a weaker blur. So you can see that, and you can move around inside the box here, the preview box, to see different patches if you would like to, or you can just check the preview box here to have the different preview, or to have a preview on the main image here. And this square that's on the main image, you can use that to pretty much like select the area you want to look at in this smaller box over here. So I can go on Joby's face over here, and that's what's going to appear over here in the image, or in the preview box. So that's what the Gaussian blur is. It's my favorite blur. I use it all the time. So I'm going to cancel, and I'm going to show you like one use I like to use Gaussian blur for, and that is to create like a focus. Now everybody in this picture, when you look at it, you can pretty much see this person, which is me, in the front, and everybody else in the back. And what I want to do is kind of like blur these guys out while keeping me in focus because I'm in the front. So what I'm going to do is duplicate my layer here, and I'm going to use an elliptical marquee here for my selection and just make this, and I'll do something like this so it gets like me in there, I guess, something like that around there, and feather out your image, and somewhere like 5 is good. It depends on how big your picture is, honestly, and we'll go from there. So make sure it's feathered, and then we're gonna add a layer mask into it, and you do that by clicking on this button here while this layer is selected. So this adds a layer mask, and it uses our selection to punch a hole into the layer mask pretty much. Now what I can do is blur the bottom layer while keeping this selection that I made untouched by the blur. So click on your bottom layer, go to filter, and then add your Gaussian blur. And when you're using filters, the last filter that you used and the amount that you used is saved here at the top. And I can click on it, and it'll bring that blur already into there without me having to add anything else. I'm going to go back real quick, so I'm going to hit Control Z. I'm just going to add the blur manually from the filter blur menu. So Gaussian blur. And now I'm just going to show you, as I move the blur around, what's being blurred and what's not. So check out these guys in the back relative to the selection that I made. And you can see that, how that selection is different. So I'm going to keep it around something like 2. I'll just type in 2 to keep it as a soft blur here. Hit OK, and you can see the difference here. Like if the bottom layer, I'm gonna turn on and turn off the bottom layer, and you can see what's going on with that. And then the top layer, you can see if I turn it off, everything's blurred. If I turn it on, now this section that I made as a selection is now more in focus than the back layer. So that's what the one way to at least use the Gaussian blur is. And at some point I may teach more ways, or use a project where I use a Gaussian blur in a different way. And I plan on doing some projects after I get like all the basics down in these tutorials that I'm making. So look forward to that in the future, and in the meantime you just experiment with the blur and see what you like. So that's the end of this tutorial, and thank you for watching this one, and I'll show you some more cool filters and effects in the next tutorial.